In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, you learn about a chamber hidden in the school that when opened, a monster comes out and will kill Muggleborns. Of course, this chamber was put there by Salazar Slytherin, the most problematic founder of the most problematic house. The chamber eventually became a myth until someone opened it, someone died, and Hagrid was blamed because he had that acromantula and everyone thought it was the monster. Of course it wasn't Hagrid, it was Tom Marvolo Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort. Thankfully, they didn't put Hagrid in Azkaban, but he was expelled from school in his 3rd year, had his wand broken, and was forbidden from doing magic for the rest of his life. In the Chamber of Secrets, they learn the truth after the chamber is opened yet again, and Hagrid is finally cleared. But I do wonder at his injustice. When they discovered that he was innocent, what did they do to make it right? Did they give him another wand? Did they allow him to take those magical corresponding courses that Filch was trying to apply for? Or give him some kind of magical education? Did they at least apologize to him? You would think that they would have figured out a lot earlier than they did that Hagrid was innocent. When Tom Riddle became Lord Voldemort and went around killing everybody, maybe somebody should have thought, maybe he is the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets and not the benevolent, gentle half-giant, because he's a serial killer. But no one thought of Hagrid, or the fact that the student who testified against him was Lord Voldemort himself. Hello? No one was suspicious? I wonder if they have lawsuits in the magical world because Hagrid has a good case. Years of his magical life that he will never get back, and his compensation is to teach a bunch of bratty children. And in the books, Hermione is constantly shading Hagrid's teaching because she doesn't think he's doing as good a job as some of the other teachers. Well, of course not. He only has a 3rd year education. Not to mention the extra education you would need to know how to teach. Because to do Hagrid some justice, he has a lot of practical knowledge. But just because he knows it doesn't mean he knows how to convey it. But what do you think about the injustice that Hagrid suffered? Do you think he should bring a lawsuit against magical law enforcement? What exactly should he sue for? Tell me in the comments down below. Recently, I reread Order of the Phoenix, and it brought back to mind S.P.E.W, the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare. The society started by Hermione Granger to fight for elf rights. Everything about and around S.P.E.W angers me because it's a lose-lose situation. On the one hand is Hermione Granger, who, if I should agree with Snape, is sometimes an insufferable know-it-all, who has this savior complex with the elves. She decides, after speaking to maybe 2 elves, that she should lead a crusade to freeing them. It's a noble cause, and she means well, but she never takes into account that Dobby was the exception, not the rule. House elves take pride in their work, are loyal to their households, and do not want to be free. Yes, wizards treat their house elves horribly and should treat them better. But in the magical world, if Hermione truly cared what was best for the house elves, she would fight for better treatment, not freedom, because they simply do not want to be free. Now, on the other side of the issue, you have the house elves, who don't want to be free. I guess I feel a certain way about this because I'm Black. But seeing a race of beings who are basically slaves who don't want to be free and will fight you if you try to free them angers me deep down in my soul. In the Order of the Phoenix, when Hermione tried to trick the house elves into freedom by leaving clothes that she knitted all around the Gryffindor common room, they stopped cleaning there. Dobby, who is already free, has to clean up Gryffindor Tower all by himself because of her antics. Then there is Dobby, who negotiated a pittance of a salary with Dumbledore and refused more money per week. So basically, slave wages. Hermione had only been in this world for 4 years before she decided she knew what was best for all parties involved, including the elves, whether they wanted freedom or not. But then there was Hagrid, who was usually the voice of reason, who was on the side of the elves. So, is the reader supposed to root for the unwanted savior or actual slavery? Every time I think about it, I get heated. If there is not a solution that is satisfactory, the whole thing is problematic. So where do you stand with S.P.E.W? Let me know in the comments down below. Severus Snape, the double agent / child abuser. In the Deathly Hallows, you find out that he was in love with Lily Potter all along, and that somehow redeemed him. They even have Harry call him the bravest man he ever knew. Well, I'm here to say he may have been brave, he may have even done some good things, but he was still the biggest jerk in Harry Potter, behind Voldemort, of course. I'm sorry, but if he really loved Lily, he would have loved her son. Just because he questioned Dumbledore's plan in those memories doesn't mean that he loved Harry Potter after all. He tormented Harry through 6 years of classes. The 5th and 6th year was the worst. Where was the love for Lily when he tried to get Harry expelled from Hogwarts? Where was the love for Lily when he didn't give Harry proper occlumency lessons? No matter how nosy Harry was to go walking through Snape's memories, he shouldn't have left him vulnerable to Voldemort. You know, the guy that killed Lily. And let's be honest, he wasn't in love with Lily, he was obsessed with her. She was the first magical friend he ever had, and he was infatuated with her. But greater than his attraction to Lily was his attraction to the dark arts, which is why he ended up in Slytherin and she ended up in Gryffindor. He turned to the dark arts as soon as they were in school and eventually became a Death Eater. If he loved Lily so much, he wouldn't have separated himself so thoroughly from her. And when he found out Voldemort was going to kill the Potter family, he tried to get him to save Lily and kill James and Harry instead. If he truly loved her, he would have tried to get Voldemort to save the whole family because she loved them. But he wasn't in love with her at all. He wanted to possess her. And then there was Sectum Sempra, the spell that gave the victim a dozen cuts. Why did he write that spell? Who did he use that spell on? And let's not forget, he was the first to find Lily and James's dead bodies. And he left baby Harry there with his parents' dead bodies while he went to go tell Dumbledore. A person who really cared would have taken the baby with him. He did do some good things. Killing Dumbledore to save Draco from having to murder him. He was a double agent for the Order of the Phoenix. He willingly gave his memories to Harry as he was dying so that Harry would know what to do next. He even saved Harry's life once. But I think we have to admit that plenty of bad people do good deeds. Good acts alone does not make a good man. I find it hard to call anyone who repeatedly abused children a good man, because he was an abuser in words and actions.
That is the second time you've spoken out of turn, Miss Granger. Are you incapable of restraining yourself, or do you take pride in being an insufferable know-it-all?
For me, there are so many bad actions that they can't be outweighed by the good. His abuse was not aimed at Harry alone. He was a bully and was the thing that Neville Longbottom was scared of most because of how horrible he was to children who weren't in Slytherin. You know, the only kids who didn't fight in the Battle of Hogwarts. No amount of "you have your mother's eyes" will make me forget everything that he did to Harry.
You have your mother's eyes.
Severus Snape is just plain scum to me. So how do you feel about Severus Snape? Do you think he was a secret hero? Or do you think he was a jerk who did a few good things? Let me know in the comments below. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, a magical object was introduced that was so powerful it had to be destroyed 2 books later. I'm talking about the Time Turner. Now, I appreciate what the Time Turner did for the plot of the Prisoner of Azkaban, but I have to admit that its mere existence calls a lot into question. I'm going to be going over those questions today. But before that, a message from me. So a few years ago, I did a thing. I wrote a novel titled The Fairy Princess Enter into Time. You can see the fairy princess here on my t-shirt. The book is about a young girl from the south side of Chicago who discovers she's a fairy princess. Her godmother is kidnapped and she must learn how to use her powers while trying to save her. The book is available on Amazon and Rakuten Kobo. T-shirts and other merch are available on my website, thefairyprincess.net. Links are in the description. I think many people have commented before on how the Time Turner could have solved a lot of problems. The YouTube channel How It Should Have Ended even speculated on how it could have been used to defeat Voldemort.
What the? What is this? Take that, you Dark Lord.
But the fact that it was used to save not only Buckbeak's life, but Sirius showed it could have been used to save a lot of people's lives. Something as powerful as time travel was used so that a 13-year-old could get to all of her classes. It sounds so trivial. They made a big deal of the great responsibility that Hermione had to have in order to use it. But again, time travel? Just to attend middle school classes? Come on now. It could have been used during the First Wizard War. The Ministry of Magic had time travel devices and didn't think it would be useful for their auras to have them. Like, why would you even need to have trials when you could go back in time and see the crimes for yourself? I'm sure Sirius never admitted to killing Peter Pettigrew. All they had to do was to go back in time and see what really happened.
Black was vicious. He didn't kill him. He destroyed him. A finger. That's all was left, a finger.
And maybe even save Peter's life. It almost gets to the level of Minority Report. You could have used time turners to prevent crimes from happening. I mean, after they already happened, of course. Wasn't that the whole plot of Madam Web? Once you know the future, you can change it in the past. It goes without saying that I think James and Lily could have been saved with a time turner. There's just so many problems that could have been solved just because this object exists. I think after the fact it was realized how powerful an object like that could be. So in the Order of the Phoenix, when Dumbledore's army is in the Ministry of Magic, they accidentally destroy every last time turner that exists while fighting with the Death Eaters. Because of course, if they still existed in a few moments, one of them could have been used to save Sirius. Still doesn't explain why one wasn't used to reverse Voldemort's return in the Goblet of Fire. Yes, Fudge was being a jerk and doing everything he could to cover up the truth. But a lot of people on Dumbledore's side worked at the Ministry of Magic and could have snuck one out and used it. Time turners, a great plot device for the Prisoner of Azkaban, but its mere existence causes problems for the plots of the other books. So, do you think time turners were too convenient? Let me know in the comments down below. So in Harry Potter's 6th and final year at Hogwarts, he received a vial of liquid luck from Professor Slughorn. He saved it all year, waiting for the right opportunity to use it. In the book, he wanted to use it to get Ginny Weasley, and when he does finally use it, he manages to break up Ginny and Dean. But my question is, did he really need it? The book and movie are so different in tone, they might inspire different answers to the question. In the book, Harry was a hapless teen who spent most of his time obsessing over Draco Malfoy and half the book avoiding Professor Slughorn until Professor Dumbledore tells him he needs Harry to collect Slughorn. In the movie, Harry was way more clever and way more willing to follow Dumbledore's instructions and do what needed to be done to get him. I mean, let's be real. Harry was surrounded by luck. He had everything he needed to get what he wanted. He was notorious because he survived an attempted murder by one of the most evil wizards ever. That fact, and the fact that his mother was already a favorite of Slughorn's, put him in the position to be favored. Then, by sheer luck, he gets Snape's old potions book with helpful instructions written in the margins, which helped him impress Slughorn. All he was missing was the right words. But given time and the right situation, I think Harry could have done it on his own. Then there was the whole Ginny Weasley situation. Did he really need liquid luck to get with a girl who had a crush on him for years? Who he has close proximity to because her brother was his best friend. He didn't need to break up her and Dean Thomas. They were high school students. That relationship already had an expiration date. Other things Harry looked into in his time at Hogwarts. The Marauders map, written by his father, his godfather, and their friends. It was given to him just when he needed it most. A position on the Quidditch team in his first year. He just so happened to be great at flying and also a great seeker. Although he had major help from an emissary of Voldemort's, it was still sheer luck that he made it through the Triwizard Tournament. Each task was dangerous and could have easily killed him. Every year he faces either Voldemort or one of his minions and survives despite not being the best student. Luck has been following Harry ever since he came to Hogwarts. So I don't really think Harry needed the Felix Felicis. Or if anything, he could have used it during his 5th year at Hogwarts, which was by far his most unlucky year. So, do you think Harry needed the Felix Felicis? So, in the Harry Potter series, there is a trace to track underage magical use.
Potter, you're underage, which means you've still got the trace on you.
What's the trace?
If you sneeze, the Ministry will know who wipes your nose.
Because it is illegal for children to use magic outside of school before they turn 17. But the trace isn't exact. It doesn't track the underage wizard or witch specifically. It tracks magic used around them. It's why Harry was blamed for Dobby's use of the hover charm when he dumped that cake on the house guest's head. Harry was an underage wizard in the vicinity, and there were no known magical beings or creatures nearby. So according to the Ministry of Magic, Harry had to be the one who used the hover charm. Forget the fact that it was kind of an advanced charm for a second-year student. They had basic facts and did no investigation. Probably because there are too many underage witches and wizards to investigate every single act of magic used around them. So children from a wizarding family could get away with literal murder. And I mean literal. Voldemort killed his father and paternal grandparents and blamed it on his maternal uncle. He was never even a suspect because it's unclear if the Ministry of Magic knew who his family was because he was an orphan. And he messed with his uncle's memory so that he thought that he actually killed them and confessed. The trace could only be useful to track orphans and muggleborns. But again, it was still imperfect in doing that. There was the incident with Harry and Dobby before his second year, but also the incident of Harry using magic at the zoo before he even knew he was a wizard. And Hermione admitted to trying simple spells at home before she even started at Hogwarts.
Of course, I've only tried a few simple ones myself, but they've all worked for me. For example, Oculus Reparo.
And I'm pretty sure Voldemort used magic at the orphanage before he even knew what he was doing. But only Harry was notified by the Ministry of Magic after there were incidents of magical use at his home after he started at Hogwarts.
You performed the Patronus charm in the presence of a muggle. As a clear violation of the decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery, you are hereby expelled.
There was also the incident where Barty Crouch Jr. used Harry's wand to put the dark mark in the sky at the Quidditch Cup. But I guess the Ministry of Magic had their hands full at that moment. Like, the trace only seemed to matter when the plot needed it to, and was forgot about it other times. Kind of like how I can't seem to find a definite birth date for Dumbledore, but it is very likely that he, Grindelwald, and Aberforth were all underage when his sister Ariana was killed by one of their spells. Also, they never knew whose spell killed Ariana, even though a spell exists that you can use to see the recent spells of a certain wand. It happened to Voldemort during his duel with Harry in the graveyard. I would think Dumbledore and Grindelwald would have been familiar with it, but I digress. Since the Ministry of Magic did not investigate the instances where magic was used around an underage witch or wizard in a magical household, you know that certain magical families took advantage of that fact. Like, do you really think Draco's parents stopped him from using magic at home? And on the other side of the coin is Fred and George, who once tried to get Ron to perform the unbreakable vow. How likely is it that they never performed magic in a home filled with magical people? Then there is the whole you must be in school in order to use magic. What about during school breaks? Weren't they on a break from school in the Half-Blood Prince when the Death Eaters came to the Burrow? Harry and Ginny fought them using magic. But again, not only was the house filled with magical adults, but Ginny's father worked for the Ministry of Magic. So basically the trace is all but useless. Its effectiveness depends upon the underage child being an orphan or a muggle-born, and also not living in a neighborhood where another magical family may live. Because Harry might have been the only magical person in his neighborhood, but his neighbor was a squib. You know, a non-magical person born into a magical family. What if her family or other magical friends came to visit? Would Harry be blamed for their magic? The trace seems less accurate than GPS. So, do you think the trace is completely useless? Let me know in the comments below. So the end game with the Harry Potter series was for Harry to go toe-to-toe with Voldemort. He had to do so by himself in order to fulfill the prophecy. Of course, I could talk about how the prophecy was actually self-fulfilling, but that's another video for another day. It took 7 books to get to the end game, and several key people died along the way. But in order for the prophecy to be fulfilled, they had to die. So in no particular order, I'm going to talk about those people. Dumbledore. Dumbledore had to die because he was the most powerful wizard and the only wizard that Voldemort was afraid of. There is just no way that it would make sense for Dumbledore to step aside and let Harry fight Voldemort alone. As shown in The Order of the Phoenix, when Harry was faced with Voldemort, Dumbledore stepped in and fought him instead because it just made sense for him to do it. I think if Dumbledore had lived, he may have sent Harry to die by Voldemort's hand in the end, but he would have been there to strike the final blow. There would not have been a final showdown between Voldemort and Harry. Of course, in the book, the final showdown was just Harry and Voldemort circling each other while Harry monologued until they each threw a spell at each other and Voldemort's backfired. But still, if Dumbledore had been alive, it would have been him and Voldemort in that circle. Sirius Black. There is no way Sirius would have allowed his godson to go up against Voldemort by himself had he been alive, no matter what plan Dumbledore laid before him. Sirius in the books was reckless and impatient and wouldn't have cared what the final plan was. He would have insisted on helping his godson or taking his place altogether. Dobby. He had a serious case of hero worship with Harry. He almost got Harry expelled and was pretty much the cause of Harry losing all the bones in his arm, all because he was trying to protect Harry from the Malfoys. And this was before Harry tricked the Malfoys into setting him free. I think Dobby would have done even more to prevent Harry from fighting Voldemort. Harry's parents. Let's start with James. He, like Sirius, wouldn't have allowed his son to go up against Voldemort alone. James was one of the smartest people at Hogwarts, and he might have found another way. Then there was Lily, whose actions helped to fulfill the prophecy. Her protecting Harry with old magic caused Harry to be marked by Voldemort when his spell rebounded. He had a piece of Voldemort within him, and that is why neither could live while the other survives. So James had to die so he wouldn't stand in Harry's way. And Lily had to die in order for Harry to fit the prophecy. One could say if they hadn't died, then Harry might not have been the chosen one.
But I am the chosen one. Okay, sorry.
Since all of these people died, it was up to Harry to go up against Voldemort by himself. Yes, Sirius and Harry's parents managed to accompany him into the forest through the help of the Resurrection Stone and managed to be a shield around him. And Dumbledore was there in the afterlife to explain everything to Harry, even the fact that he could go back.
Is this all real? Or is it just happening inside my head?
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Why should that mean that it's not real?
But this had to be the extent of their help to Harry in order for the prophecy to be fulfilled. So what do you think of these steps? Do you think they were necessary? Or do you think the prophecy could have been fulfilled with them still alive? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know if there's something like a movie, TV show, or book you would like to see me talk about. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know the next time I upload or go live.